Hello, okay, so today I'm going to talk about how I created these two really simple watercolour paintings using just two colours and two brushes. Okay, so let's get started. Now I'm going to do the first one in my sketchbook, and the colours I'm using are Indigo Blue, Paynes Grey, and I've got a small round brush here and a large flat brush. Okay, so I'm just going to get my palette there and I'm going to get my paint ready. So there goes the Indigo and there's the Paynes Grey. And very importantly, I'm also going to get 2 glasses of clean water. Okay, so I'm just taping the sides of the page just to give it a neat edge, and there's no need to tape the tops and bottoms because the paint won't go up that high. I quite often get asked about the tape, and this is just a low tack masking tape which you can find in your local art supply, or there's plenty available online as well. Okay, so I'm getting my water now and I'm mixing in the Paynes Grey, but I'm keeping it quite thick. I want this paint to go down quite dark, so I haven't put too much water in. And I'm just going to draw a line all the way across the page, and you just have to sort of go for it. Take a deep breath and draw the line as straight as you can. It doesn't need to be perfectly straight. And then underneath I'm going to draw another line, but I'm going to leave these two areas which are going to end up looking like areas where perhaps the sun is hitting the landscape. They're going to be highlighted areas, so I won't be painting over these. And now I'm cleaning off my brush, and I'm going to get my thicker brush and I'm going to add some water, and I'm going to drag that across this top line, and I'm going to be really careful not to go below the top of that line. And as you can see, the paint is just being pulled up into that water. And I'm not going to go over this too many times. It's just really 3 or 4 strokes, and then you just let the paint do what it's going to do. Okay, so I already had my indigo paint ready in my palette, and I'm going to mix that in with quite a lot of water. And I'm working fairly quickly because it's actually quite a hot day here, and that Paynes Grey is probably drying quite quickly. So I'm doing the same thing at the bottom, but this time it's not with pure water. I've got the Indigo Blue mixed in with the water, and I'm just dragging that across in the same way. This is a thicker line, and I've just angled it slightly just to give the landscape some kind of variation. Okay, so that's pretty much done now. I just want to soften that line at the bottom, and I'm cleaning off my brush, and I'm going to just drag my brush over the bottom of that line just to soften that edge. Now you've got to be careful not to put too much water on your brush, because otherwise the water will travel up and you'll get something called a bloom. But this painting is finished now, and I'm just going to wait for it to dry, and then I'll take off the tape. Okay, so I'm really quite happy with how this little sketchbook painting turned out, and I always like to get a frame or a mat and just put it over my work just to see what it looked like if it was framed. And this could be a really nice little painting if you wanted to put it behind glass. And just looking at this close up, it was a very simple technique, but it's quite a nice little landscape there, very simple. And I'm going to try and do the same technique on a different type of paper. So let's get the Archer's cold press smooth grain and just see what happens when we try and do the same thing. Okay, so this is actually my second attempt on the Archer's paper, because the first one I did, it didn't really work, and the reason was that, as I mentioned before, it's quite hot where I am, and the paint just seemed to dry a bit too quickly. So I'm going to try something a little bit different here, and I'm going to do the first line and apply the water, and then I'm going to do the second line afterwards, just to give the second line less chance of drying. Okay, so I actually went in with the thinner brush at the top to pull that line up with the water, and I think this was a decision I made because I found that the paint was getting pulled across a lot more, and with the thicker brush it just made the line quite thick. So that's what I'm doing there. And as I said before with the other painting, you don't want to overwork your painting too much. You just put your brush strokes down and you just really let the paint move as it wants to. Okay, so now, as I did with the other painting, I'm going to do a second line, but I'm just going to leave 2 white areas within the landscape, which will become like highlights. Okay, and to balance out that line above, which is a bit thicker, I decided to put another line across there to make that line a bit thicker. And now I'm going to go in with my indigo blue on my thicker brush in exactly the same way as I did on the other one. I don't want to overwork this too much. I'm leaving a little bit of white to the right hand side, and I'm just angling that brush down a little bit. Now this painting in general had more paint and possibly a bit more water than the first paint, and I ended up having to go over the painting a bit more than I did with the first one. But I want to show this part of the process, so I'm just going to put the music up while I finish off this painting. But I'm also going to speed it up quite a bit. Okay, so this is done now. I'm going to take the tape off. And as you can see on the left hand side, there is a bit of dark paint which is kind of ruining the line of this landscape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this away and make sure it's completely dry, and then I'm going to show you how you can rectify mistakes in watercolour even when the paint is dry. So I'm just going to put a little bit of tape along the side there just so that I can keep that nice crisp line, and I'm going to get some really clean water and with my brush sort of scrub that water into that area quite carefully so as not to disturb the rest of the paint around it. And then I'm just going to get some tissue and just soak that water up, and that will take away that dark colour. So that's a really good example of how it is possible to correct mistakes in watercolour even right towards the end of the painting process. Okay, so this is basically done now, and here we go. Here are the 2 finished paintings. So we've got the one in my sketchbook and we've got the other one on the Archer's paper. And as you can see, that's buckled slightly, so if you wet the back you could put it under books and that would flatten it out. Now I really like doing these really simple kind of abstract landscapes in watercolour. I've got some similar but slightly different tutorials available on my channel, landscapes and seascapes. One is done in acrylic ink. So I'll put the links in the description and you can have a look at those as well if you found this one interesting. Now if you did like this, please hit the like button or even leave a comment. It really helps my channel. And if you want to see similar videos in the future, then please subscribe to my channel. Okay, thank you, bye.